Hi everyone, welcome to week 5 of Methodism 101. This week we are going to be learning about the United Methodist agencies and the social principles of the United Methodist Church. Now my hope for today is that you will learn something new about our many agencies and that you will become aware of all of the different things that we actually have social principles for in our book of discipline. If this is your first time tuning in for a Methodist 101 video, I'm so excited that you're joining us. And the purpose of this class has been to learn more about our Methodist identity, our history, our doctrine, and our polity, which is the way that we are organized as United Methodist. Next week is going to be our last week of the class. We are going to be learning about the conference and committee structure, which is one of our unique United Methodist practices. And so I'm really excited to be here sharing with you about another week of our unique Methodist identity. Now, the United Methodist agencies, some of these you may have heard of and some of them you may have not. The agencies provide resources and services that equip local congregations and provide a connection for ministry throughout the world. So these agencies help us to do good work as individual churches, and they really help our connection. They help us be related to one another, which is important for us as United Methodists. We are connectional people, and the agencies help in that. Now, these agencies are different councils, boards, commissions, committees, divisions, or other units, and they are found at all levels of our connection. Church-wide, so the entire United Methodist Church throughout the world, regional and local. They're established by the General Conference that meets every 4 years, and they are important for providing common vision, mission, and ministry for the entire global United Methodist Church. Now, each agency is governed by a board of directors made up of lay people and clergy people that are elected by the jurisdictional and central conferences. Bishops also share in the oversight on these boards. I want to let you know before we dive into the list of all the agencies that all the information I'm sharing with you about the agencies is found on the UMC resource website. So if you want to learn more, you can go to www.umc.org and you can find the agencies and you can explore more about them. Many of them have rich histories to learn from. But I'm going to share with you an overview of the different agencies that we have. The first one is the General Commission on Archives and History. Now, this agency serves the church through the ministry of memory. They allow United Methodists to learn from their past and to anticipate the future. So they help to preserve our United Methodist story in different ways. The next agency that we have is the General Board of Church and Society. Now, this place is really cool because it is headquartered in the only non-governmental building on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. So if you ever get the opportunity to go to Washington, D.C., you should try to find this building on Capitol Hill. Now, the General Board of Church and Society leads and challenges United Methodists to pray, to study, and to work in areas of social concern. And remember, Methodists have long been concerned with society. We have a long history of being involved in social justice. So this group helps to inform and motivate and train United Methodists on different issues of social justice in society. Now, the next agency is the United Methodist Communications. It is abbreviated as UMCOM, and it provides leadership for the denomination in all matters of communication. Also, they deal with public relations and they promote the general funds and worldwide programs that we have. So UCOM also produces resources and communications related services and training to support the ministries of the local church and the annual conference. So they have a wonderful website where you can go and get guidance on how to communicate well with your congregation and with your community, which is a valuable resource for local churches. The next agency that we want to talk about is the Discipleship Ministries agency. Now, this agency connects laity and clergy around the world with appropriate resourcing and with materials. They help with training, with consulting, and with networking to support spiritual formation. So they give us really good ideas on how to be good teachers within the church. They also help with new church development and with revitalization efforts in local churches. So anything related to helping our congregation to become better disciples, they provide resources on. And they are another agency with an exceptional website that I've used many times for guidance and for resources. So they really are accessible to people who are doing ministry right now. The next agency is the General Counsel of Finance and Administration. So their ministry includes protecting all the legal assets of the denomination. They collect and analyze statistics, and they serve as the trustees of all the financial assets given to the denomination. And they also maintain an insurance program that is available to all United Methodist congregations here in the United States. The General Board of Global Ministries, they do a lot. They connect the church to its mission. They send and support over 300 short and long-term missionaries all over the world. They collaborate and engage with volunteers. They participate in evangelizing and church planting through mission initiatives. And they work to address the needs that are created in this world by the diseases of poverty, and they also work on global health issues. They respond to natural and civil disasters. Now, many of you have probably heard of Umcor, the United Methodist Committee on Relief. We often have special offerings that go to Umcor. If there is a disaster somewhere, we often will take up an offering for Umcor, and Umcor is part of Global Ministries. And one of the most wonderful things about Umcor is that when we donate, say if there's a tornado in South Carolina, and we donate specifically to the relief efforts for that project, 100% of the money that we donate goes straight to that project. The overhead costs for Umcor are covered by our apportioned giving that we give as part of our annual giving to the annual conference and to the district. So that is all covered. So when we say, okay, we are collecting money for tornado relief, every penny of every dollar that we collect goes straight to that project, which is really, really wonderful. And that's not always true in other organizations. So that is something that we can really be proud of as United Methodist. Now, the next agency I want to share with you is the General Board of Higher Education and Ministry. Now, this group embraces the ministry of learning and leadership formation in the United Methodist Church. They oversee clergy training and candidacy programs. They support a global network of more than 1,000 Methodist-related schools, colleges, and universities, and they really do assist in helping people to become clergy members. They provide grants for people who are in school to become clergy people, and they support all efforts of learning and growing and leadership development within the United Methodist Church. Now, the next agency I'll share with you is called the General Commission on Religion and Race. And this group challenges and equips the people of the United Methodist Church to be intentionally diverse, an intentionally diverse body of Christ. They offer tools to guide conversations about racial justice and racism and religion and how all of those things intersect. They help us to figure out what is our role as Christians to respond to the evils of racism that still exist in our world. This group leads in systematic transformation. They monitor our denomination for racial equality, and they encourage cross-racial and cross-cultural ministry to happen. They also serve as a fair process advocate in matters of racial discrimination. So this is a very important thing for our church to have, to make sure that we are being people who operate under racial equality, because we know that all people, no matter what their skin color, are beloved children of God, and that is good news. So the next agency I'll share with you is the General Commission on the Status and Role of Women. Now, this group advocates for the full participation of women in the total life of the United Methodist Church. Now, we know from our lesson on clergy and ordination and the history of the Methodist Church that women can be ordained to any office of the United Methodist Church and have been able to do that for a really long time. I think since 1965, I believe, was the date. And so if we did not already ordain women, this would be the group that would be leading the charge to make sure that we could ordain women. But they deal with lots of different matters to make sure, again, that as a church, we are operating under equality. We are acknowledging men and women equally as beloved children of God. And that is good news. Now, the next agency I'll share with you, I know that you've heard of before. It is the United Methodist Men. We have United Methodist Men here in our own congregation. Now, this group involves men in growing relationship to Jesus Christ and his church and provides resources and support for the programs of evangelism and stewardship and the needs of men. Now, important to note, like we said, the agencies operate at all different levels. So while we have United Methodist Men organization here in our local church here at Louisville UMC, there's also district-wide United Methodist Men initiatives, as well as conference-wide and even church-wide opportunities for participation in the United Methodist Men. The next agency is the United Methodist Publishing House. If you were to go through me and Pastor Paul's bookshelves, we have lots of things that have been put out by the United Methodist Publishing House. What's interesting is that they are the oldest and the largest of the denomination's general agencies because they were started in the late 1700s. As soon as the Methodist movement started to form in America, they knew they needed a publishing house. They needed a way to get information and teaching into the hands of others. Now, this agency distributes official publications, records, and any forms that the denomination has. They are also responsible for publishing our book of discipline, our book of worship, and the hymnal, and anything else that is created by the General Conference every 4 years. They publish books through Abington Press, and they operate the company Cokesbury, which you may have heard of before. If you use the adult Sunday school curriculum, I order that from Cokesbury every quarter for you. So the next agency is the United Methodist Women, one that we are well aware of. This group fosters spiritual growth and develops leaders. They seek to improve the lives of women, children, and youth. And they advocate for peace and justice, economic equality, education, the rights of children, human rights, and farm workers' rights. And just like the United Methodist Men, we know we have United Methodist Women in our congregation, but there's also opportunities for United Methodist Women to engage on the district level. I think our United Methodist Women are planning to go to a district-wide prayer breakfast later in April, I think. There's also conference-wide opportunities to engage in the United Methodist Women, as well as worldwide opportunities to engage with this group. And our last agency that I'll share with you is called WestPath. It was formerly known as the General Board of Pension and Health Benefits, but now it's called WestPath. And this group administers pension plans to help secure the retirement futures of clergy people and lay workers who work in the church. They also oversee the clergy health plan. So they work to provide some financial security for our clergy people and for church staff in the United Methodist Church, which is important work for sure. So friends, those are all of the agencies. And I said to our class yesterday, if you look at this list, it can seem like a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of committees, a lot of groups, and you might say, well, why do we need that? But I encourage you to look at this list almost like a value statement of the United Methodist Church. So if we have an agency about an issue or for something, it tells us that we have deemed that cause or group or project worthy of our time and our talent and our resources. So if you look at this list, you could say it is important to the United Methodist Church that we preserve our history, through the General Commission on Archives and History. It is important to the United Methodist Church that we focus on social justice issues and think about how church and society interact. It's important to the United Methodist Church that we communicate well. It's important that we disciple people well. It's important that our financial assets are taken care of. It's important that we are engaged in mission throughout the world. It's important that we train and equip future leaders. It's important that we devote time to issues of racism and how our religion interacts with that. It's important to us to make sure that women are being treated equally in the church. It's important to us to take care of the men of our church. It's important for us to take care of the women of our church. It's important for us to have a way to get information and teaching and books and resources out to any people who want to consume it. And it's important for us to take care of our clergy people and our church staff by providing them with good, solid retirement opportunities and with health insurance. So if you go through the list and you read it kind of like a value statement, I think it can help us understand why it's important that we have these agencies. I think they're very interesting, and I hope that you learned something new today. Now, the second part of our lesson, we are going to talk about the social principles. Now, like we said earlier, Methodists have a long history of concern for social justice, and how do we relate to our world as Christian people? So in 1972, at the General Conference of the United Methodist Church, there was added to the Book of Discipline, a section about the church's social principles. And since 1972, every 4 years at General Conference, those social principles have been revised. So delegates to the General Conference, which are from all around the world, clergy people and lay people, they will work together on these issues to revise our social principles. Now, we don't consider these to be church law, but they are a prayerful and thoughtful effort to speak to the human issues in the contemporary world from a sound biblical and theological foundation. So Pastor Paul was talking to me about these the other day, and he said you can think of them as the church's best teaching at a specific time on a different matter. So if we were to get all of the books of discipline that have been created since 1972 and lay them out and look, we would see change in our social principles, and that is okay. It is the church's best teaching at a specific time in history on an event. Now, I have made a list for you. If you have downloaded this week's handout, you can see a list of all the things that we have social principles on. And I'll read you that list just so you can get an idea of what do we have a teaching about. But before I share that list, I do want to encourage you, if you were to look up these social principles and read them and say, I don't agree with that social principle, that doesn't mean that you can't be a United Methodist. Not at all. United Methodists have a long history of being people who want to agree on the essentials, but don't feel like they have to agree on the non-essentials. So there are social principles on things like the death penalty and abortion and all sorts of other hot button items. And if you don't agree with the official social principle that is in the Book of Discipline, that's okay. You can still be a United Methodist. We can all still sit around the same table. These are the less essential things. What we do agree on is we believe in God, we believe in Jesus, we believe in the Holy Spirit, all is part of the Trinity, and those doctrinal things are what's important for us to agree on. So I just wanted to say that disclaimer before we talk about this, because I think that's important for us to know. Now, the social principles I think I mentioned are found in the Book of Discipline. So this is a list of all the things that we have social principles about. We have social principles about the natural world, which includes water, air, soil, minerals, and plants, energy resource utilization, animal life, global climate stewardship, space, science and technology, food safety, and food justice. We have social principles about the nurturing community, which includes culture and identity, the family, marriage, divorce, single persons, women and men, human sexuality, family violence and abuse, sexual harassment, abortion, ministry with those who have experienced an abortion, adoption, faithful care for dying persons, suicide, sexual assault, pornography, and bullying. We have social principles on things dealing with the social community, which includes the rights of racial and ethnic persons, the rights of religious minorities, the rights of children, the rights of young people, rights of the aging, rights of women, rights of men, rights of immigrants, rights of persons with disabilities, equal rights regardless of sexual orientation, population, alcohol and other drugs, tobacco, medical experimentation, genetic technology, rural life, and sustainable agriculture. Also, urban and suburban life, media violence and Christian values, information communication technology, persons living with HIV and AIDS, right to health care, organ transplantation and donation, and mental health. We have social principles about the economic community. That includes prosperity, collective bargaining, work and leisure, consumption, poverty, foreign workers, gambling, family farms, corporate responsibility, finance, trade and investment, graft and corruption, and public indebtedness. We have social principles for things related to the political community, which includes basic freedom and human rights, political responsibility, church and state relations, freedom of information, education, civil disobedience and obedience, the death penalty, criminal and restorative justice, and military services. And last, we have social principles about the world community. And that includes nations and cultures, national power and responsibility, war and peace, and justice and law. So I bet you didn't know, unless you've been reading your United Methodist Book of Discipline for fun lately, I bet you didn't know that we had social principles about all of those things. And again, these are found in our Book of Discipline that is published every 4 years following General Conference. Now, I thought it'd be fun to share with you one of the social principles, and I wanted to pick one that I thought maybe you wouldn't think we would have a social principle about this. So I'm going to share with you our social principle on space. It says that the universe, known and unknown, is the creation of God and is due the respect we are called to give the earth. We therefore reject any nation's efforts to weaponize space and urge that all nations pursue the peaceful and collaborative development of space technologies and of outer space itself. Isn't that interesting that we have a social principle about space? So friends, if you are interested in learning more about the social principles or you want to read them, please let me know and I can give you a copy of them. But again, I just want to remind you that the social principles are the best teachings of the church as reflected by the delegates of the General Conference. So these are reflections of people from all over the world who have come together to share their perspectives and to come to some sort of conclusion about how we should comment on different issues that we deal with in our world. And if you don't agree with something that's in the social principles, that's okay. Remember, this is not church law. So I feel like I need to give that disclaimer. If you read if you read the section on gambling and you say, I don't agree with that, you can still be a United Methodist. There's room for everyone at the table. We do not have to agree on everything. Okay? So again, if you would like a copy, if you want to read these, let me know. You could probably also find some online that you could read through. So that is our lesson for today, friends, about the agencies and about the social principles. These are two things that some people don't know that they even exist in the United Methodist Church, but they are good things. Our social principles help us to develop our thoughts about contemporary issues, and our agencies help us to work together effectively. They give us resources and support. They help us to organize, and they help to strengthen our connection as United Methodist. And next week, when we talk about the conferences and the committees, we're really going to dive into that connectional nature of the United Methodist Church, which I think is one of the most beautiful things about our denomination. So thank you so much for tuning in. I encourage you to download the handout for today. It's on the website so that you can follow along with this video. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.